Good morning, guys. Just back at it, working using the newspaper.com subscription. I had to renew it this morning. If anybody wants to help with that, guys, please do. I did take the $40 we had in the account, put it towards this. It was 80 bucks, but we use it a lot, and we're using it on the McWilliams murders as, you know, that's been our main source of information so far. Now, what I want to do, guys, is I'm trying to find more information on the actual scene, and I've got an article here that is describing both of the detectives who were at the scene, McClanahan and Ralph Black. They testified. I'm going through their testimony right now to try and determine which side of the road these bodies were on. I am 100% sure we have the right place now. So I'm just going through and I'm piecing that together. Now, we also did another video, guys, in their words, okay? The story of Jack and Carol using only the spirit box responses. And in there, I kind of got the feeling that, maybe there's more to this Ralph Black character, that maybe he was forced into doing whatever he did, manipulations, if he did manipulate the evidence, planted that bullet. So I want to actually do a spirit box session on Ralph Black. So I'm actually collecting information on him. I've got his wife's name because she came through and said to tell me that he was forced to do it. Okay, that was in the last session. And her name was Dawn Rousseau. And we're going to ask some questions to Ralph and Dawn. Full respect, because Ralph said we weren't respecting him. Detective Black, did you plant that .38 caliber bullet in the shoebox?
You make up a good story, everybody just accepts it and moves on. So, well, it's a little different today, but years ago.
Yeah, the police were the authority. You didn't question it.
No, you respected it.
The night that Doug and I went out to the bridge, he got quite upset in the responses when, I proposed this theory to Doug that Ralph had tampered with evidence. So we're going to lay it out. We're going to ask some questions and give Ralph a chance to defend himself and his actions. All right, guys, I'm still confused here. I found kind of what we're looking for. Exhibit 7 was a picture of the creek facing northward from the bridge. This picture showed the faint outline of a hand underwater in the top portion of the bridge railing that showed a gouge out of the railing that was later to be identified as having been caused by a bullet. The problem is the road actually runs north-south. The creek runs on a diagonal this way. So east, west, this way. The water is actually flowing to the left and the river goes up on an angle like this. So from the bridge, you could be looking north and see the east side, or you could be looking north and see the west side. I think it's where we went in. I think it's where we detected. It later goes on to say that 25 feet east of the bridge, Staff Sergeant McLennan said he found blood on a stone and a cigarette butt, as well as scuffle marks. The reporting doesn't make this any easier. I want to read a report to you guys. The bodies were found in the river shortly before noon on Monday. Sergeant Ralph Black of the North Bay Police Department found the man's body floating near a bridge on the Old Woodfield Station Road. A few minutes later, Constable Ron Cody and Constable Roy Kaczmariak discovered the body of the woman about 50 yards downstream. That was reported Tuesday, November 18th. Okay, that's what was in the nugget. Now, when we read the actual testimony from the 13th of April, 1976, this is what they say. After removing the first body from the water around 1:30 o'clock that afternoon, McClanahan picked up several bits of evidence around the area, including blood and cigarette butts and wood chips from the scene. Goes on to describe how they were all placed in bags and sent to the Center for Forensic Sciences, basically covering their own butt, saying, oh, we put his plastic on his hands to protect under the fingernails, we put everything in bags. But it goes on to say, while Staff Sergeant McClanahan continued his search of the scene, Constable Ron Cote and Roy Kaczmarek probed the depths of the creek in an effort to establish if there was a second body. Around 2:30 o'clock, they discovered the body of a girl whom they identified as Carol Ann McWilliams. So they're saying it was at least an hour later, 2:30, and these guys had been there, called out first thing in the morning. More discrepancies. Sergeant Black said there were a lot of footprints, some male and some female, which ran north from the bridge for about 20 or 25 feet. They stopped there, and there appeared to be 2 drag marks that looked like heel marks that led back to the bridge, he testified. That doesn't make sense, guys. We'll explain that in a second. My thought on that. They said that she was found downriver, right? It took an extra couple hours to find her body. So if she was drugged back to the bridge and her and Jack were both dumped off the bridge, they should have been right there together. I showed you guys how thick that brush is. Those bodies were not going to go anywhere. There's no current there. Okay, so today's session is going to be on Ralph Stanley Black. He was a detective for the North Bay Police Services for 35 years. He retired as a staff sergeant in 1988. And he died May 5th, 2004. Okay, married to Dawn Rousseau. So, Detective Ralph Black, if you are there, I would like you to come through and answer some questions for us today. I will show you the utmost respect. I just want to understand what happened in this case. Ralph Stanley Black, can you come through and discuss the McWilliams murders, please? As I mentioned, all due respect will be shown. I want you to clarify what happened with this case. I want you to tell us in your words. Were you forced to tamper with evidence by Police Chief William Witherspoon? Did you plant the .38 caliber bullet in the shoebox?
I get.
Ralph Stanley Black, were you an alcoholic? I thought I heard the word arrogant there, and he was referred to as arrogant in the story that I'm reading to you guys in their words. They were talking about Detective Black, and right after it said his name, it said arrogant before. Was Donald Kelly guilty and just better off behind bars? Who called in the tip of where to find Carol and Jack? I'm going to stop and interject right here, guys, because the things that are coming through are... This is the next day, by the way. Change of shirt. I can only listen to this with a clear head for so many hours before I take a break and go at it again the next morning. I hear things more clearly and I can work for a few more hours. And I went back and I re-listened to all the things we got yesterday and adding a word in here, adding a word in there because they talk over each other. And one of the things that blew my mind yesterday was when I asked him to tell us in his words, Detective Black, about this case. It said we collected 7 bullets. Well, they did. That's how many bullets there were. So right away, it's making sense. Now, there's other things that are making sense. It's like we had a conversation with this guy, okay? Let's go back and I just want to look at what his replies were. When they first showed up, it says McClanahan reporting. Well, McClanahan was one of the other detectives, so there's no way that the box just made up that name. Now, it also says, did Price show up? I don't know who Price is. There were 4 other detectives on the bridge on that particular case, but there could have been another police officer named Price. And if we can find that in the research, it will not surprise me, guys. I am, 90% sure there was a Price because they said the name as clear as could be. So also when he was telling us in his words about this case, again, I've mentioned to you guys sometimes it's almost like we're going back in time and capturing snippets of conversation and things that happened. It says Ian's name. It says shit for real, raped, where at, tips, important. Then it says Ian's name again. It says choke her, beat her up, did pills. That's him telling us about these characters and what was going on. It says sent me. Then it says his dad. Well, I wasn't sure whose dad. Well, they're talking about Jack because the next word that it said is Frank. Frank was Jack's dad. Again, hounded me to help. So Frank was, begging Detective Black and his team to help figure out what happened. Again, that makes sense. And then, this is the surprising part. I asked him if he was an alcoholic, and his first thing that he says is, but I'm not arrogant. And earlier in an earlier session, somebody had said Black's name, and then it said arrogant. So right away he wants to clear that up, that he's not arrogant. It says home at least. Then you hear a woman's voice say, stop, hun. Dale, we had a few glasses. Was Dale his drinking buddy? Was Dale another cop? Is Dale Detective Price? I don't know. But again, I'm asking him about being an alcoholic. It says, we had a few glasses. Okay, now here's an interesting part, guys. This is something that might actually, in fact, be a new bit of information that could make sense that I had never thought of. But it fits. Danger, scared him, lost kid, corruption. You're a pet, Blackie. Who are we talking about? Well, I asked him about Donald Kelly. Was he just a bad guy? Did he need to go to prison? And those were the replies that we got. What does that mean? It means he was a lost kid. He was known to the police force. He did anything and everything bad. But the interesting part is, you're a pet, Blackie. Basically, Detective Black is saying that Donald Kelly was working for Blackie Plagisi, who was a known mob guy. That's what that sentence right there tells me. How does that fit? Well, we know that Donald Kelly was running guns. The spirit box told us that before we found that out. Then we found out that they actually robbed the hardware store, stole 110 guns. What would Donald Kelly do with 110 guns? Nothing. But what could Blackie Plagisi do with 110 guns? Ha ha ha, now you're talking. it's the first time that we've got that connection. You know, was Donald Kelly actually working for Puglisi? According to the spirits, he was. Now, the last section that I've analyzed, guys, where I stopped right here, again, this is just a cop's view on what's going on. And I got a real sense for this guy that, you know, maybe I've painted him in a worse light, Detective Black. In my head, I've got him as a bad guy, a corrupt cop. You know what? I think he was just a cop, a hard-nosed guy who did the beat back in 1969, who demanded respect, and that's the way you had to do the job, because these guys were bad guys. And this is what he says. I saved her. Let you know. Beat, for sure. It's important. Go at it. Throw punches. Throw. Sheriff. A room. Girls. F's sake. Tied her up. Well, this is the 4th time that we've heard that Carol was tied up. So is he specifically talking about Carol here? Probably. And it says that he saved her. So I think he's trying to let us know that he wasn't a bad guy. He was doing his job. And him and all the other cops on this case, full shiver right down my neck and arms, knew that she was going to end up beaten and abused, if not worse, dead. And she did. She ended up dead. And it's like they're saying, we knew it. We tried everything we could to save her. I'm not done analyzing, guys. Let's get back to it. Dawn Rousseau, Mrs. Black. Is Ralph being truthful? Were you ever on the take, Detective Black? Did you intimidate and coerce Pat Fragamini?
Twice.
I heard it say detect there, along with a bunch of other things, names, and they shot her. Did you ever receive payment or work for Ernest Blackie Puglisi? Did you have anything to do with the missing case files from the courthouse? Detective Black, I am offering you a chance to help right any wrongdoing. Can you help me solve this case? I just want the truth.
No.
Alright guys, that ends the session with Detective Ralph Black. However, I just wanted to say that if I was just interpreting this and telling the story that I wanted to tell, I would have told you guys, you know, what a corrupt guy he was. He tampered with evidence and, you know, he was a a bad cop. But basically, he's come through and told us, no, he did what he had to do to get the job done. He actually protected Carol, saved Carol from at least one incident. And that's the fourth time, like I said, that we've heard about Carol being tied up. So it's just confirmation to me. And this guy is just saying, you know, I did what I had to do. Times were different back then, but he wasn't a bad cop. So this is another instance of Gary has to remain unbiased and just listen to the box. What is the box saying? One word at a time, and I puzzle it out. I'm not telling the story. They're telling the story through the box. And I think I've done as good a job as I can do, guys. Thumbs up if you appreciate the video. Thanks for those of you that are still here. We'll catch you in the next adventure.